Okay, today we're joined by Neela Paykel, a distinguished legal executive with over 2 decades of in-house leadership experience spanning MedTech, autonomous vehicles, and digital health. Currently serving as Tech General Counsel in residence at Mayor Brown's San Francisco office, Neela brings a wealth of knowledge from her previous roles, including General Counsel at Hyperfine, Deputy General Counsel at Waymo, and Vice President at Proteus Digital Health. We'll delve into Neela's remarkable journey, exploring the evolving role of in-house counsel across diverse industries and the strategic insights she has garnered along the way. Neela, welcome to Ivory GC. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here today.
Can you start with telling us a little bit about what you're currently doing? It's an interesting role and a bit different. I did a little bit of reading on Mayor Brown's program. Tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. So Mayor Brown launched this program a couple of years ago. I'm the second Tech General Counsel in residence, and I was really brought in to do three things. One is to help Mayor Brown increase its visibility in the tech industry. They already have amazing tech clients like Netflix, Google, Spokio, TikTok. They represented TikTok in their recent Supreme Court case. And making sure more people know about Mayor Brown in that industry. Second is to really teach the firm about how to be even more effective with general counsel and in-house counsel. And then third, to leverage my healthcare and life sciences expertise.
Okay, great. And so are you working, when you're in this program, are you largely on your own? Do you leverage some of the associate and other support resources at Mayor Brown? How does the program work within the firm, and how do you support your clients?
Yeah, so a lot of it is business development and marketing and creating relationships. And I do leverage some of the other attorneys, but really in a way to highlight their expertise as well. And so, for example, have launched a number of different webinar series or hosted some newsletters going out that really talk about the amazing expertise of the Mayor Brown attorneys.
Yeah, got it. So can you tell us a little bit about how you have gotten to where you are today? Maybe walk us through your background.
Sure. So I fell into healthcare law. I really did. I had gone to law school in Washington, D.C., so I really wanted to work for an international development economic type organization like the World Bank or the IMF. And that did not happen. And so a friend of mine said, "Hey, you want to work at the American Psychological Association?" I said, "Sure." I got that role, and it was love at first sight. I love healthcare law because it is impactful every day. It really makes a difference in people's lives. And as a lawyer, I feel like I have hands-on impact, and that's very meaningful to me. And so I went down that journey, and I've been very deliberate about getting experience in all different parts of the ecosystem, whether it's on the payer side or on the biotech side, or, in my last few roles on the health tech, med tech side.
Got it. So can you tell us a little bit about the last few opportunities you've had and some of the companies, how you've built a bit of an industry expertise?
Sure. So after leaving Genentech, I went to in-house as the lead legal executive at a digital health company, and it was really cool. We created a sensor that helped you track how you and when you take your drugs to ensure drug adherence, because it's actually 50-50 on people adhering to their drug protocols and their medication protocols. So I went there, and unfortunately that company did not do as well as we had all thought it would. But before that, I left to go to Waymo, the self-driving car company started by Alphabet. And that was completely different. I had never done anything like that before. It was automotive, but it was still incredibly innovative. It was disruptive and highly regulated and safety critical industry, which is why they hired me. But I was there during the pandemic when that first hit, and I really missed healthcare. I missed all the innovation and changes that were going on to make healthcare accessible during a pandemic. The amount of telehealth, for example, shot up through the roof. It doubled, in fact. And so I went back into healthcare, and I went to a company that did also incredible things. They had a portable MRI, which is about kind of looks like an R2D2, to be honest. It just goes from room to room, and you plug it in and it scans your brain, and it's all open,
Wow.
right? So you don't have that sense of claustrophobia, and it's not as noisy as a typical MRI. And it's really designed to um, detect brain activity and brain issues well before the problem actually hits.
Yeah.
Um, and then after leaving there, I leveraged that expertise in health tech and med tech to now, in addition to my tech GC and residence role at Mayor Brown, I'm a fractional general counsel for earlier stage high growth companies in the health tech and med tech space.
Got it. That's great. So what would you say have been some of the pivotal moments in your career, either from an in-house perspective or otherwise?
Um, I think it's one of the things is when I decided to go from private practice to being in-house and really understanding why I made that decision and why I really loved what I was doing. So when I was in private practice, we had the opportunity, even back then, I represented innovative healthcare companies. And a lot of the times, the most fun I had was when we had a newly started healthcare company. They didn't have in-house counsel, and they turned to us for everything. And I love that part of being able to have a daily dialogue with
Yeah.
them, being part of their business decisions. And so I think for me, that was a pivotal moment of realizing I loved in-house practice. And that private practice is great for a lot of people. It just wasn't what drove me to get up out of bed every morning. And then I think the other pivotal moment was when I went from large organizations like a Genentech or CVS to smaller organizations, and just that daily interaction and direct impact you have on the business and the
Yeah.
strategy. And once again, what I loved about it was I got to do something different every day. I was doing everything from NDAs to the most strategic decisions on who our payer mix should be, for example, and just really being involved in that. And I like that, knowing everybody and just having that daily interaction with all my colleagues.
Yeah, that's great. And so, as general counsel and chief compliance officer at Hyperfine, what would you say the unique challenges from a legal perspective were in bringing the world's first portable MRI system to market?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of different things. One is healthcare is hard to change. Like, even though there's a lot of innovation always happening there, the players in the healthcare system don't really want to do anything differently. And so
Mm,
I think one of the unique challenges is we have this amazing product. We all can see the value of it. How do you convince everybody else it's valuable,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So that's just one from a very big business perspective. And then second, it was a small company, and I think it's something that all general counsel always think about, but particularly ones in high growth companies, is that how do you balance legal compliance, enterprise risk with launching a really successful commercial business?
yeah,
You
yeah.
have to move quickly, and you have to understand what are the ultimate goals and what's really going to be a deal breaker for your company.
So, what strategies have you used when it comes to striking that balance, right? Of
Mhm.
being aware of the regulatory considerations, challenges, but also needing to innovate and move quickly and maybe at times break things.
Yeah.
Where do you strike that balance, or how have you been able to successfully navigate that dynamic within some of these high growth companies?
Yeah, and I think that comes from a lot of experience, and that's why I think
Yeah.
it's so important to have an experienced general counsel in a smaller company in particular, because you understand instinctively like what is going to be problematic, especially in highly regulated industries. So I think a lot about what is our business goal? Okay, it's to get this, let's just say it's a big customer contract, it's to get this contract done. Well, have I spent enough time with my business colleagues to understand what is our most important assets, what's most
Yeah.
important for this quarter, for this year, and if you have a health tech or med tech company, typically it's your IP that's really critical, that's going to be the differentiator for your company. And so the big customer contract, maybe I can give on a payment term, like, we
Yeah.
can go from 30, 60, 90 days, but I've got to protect my IP at all costs. And if I
Yeah.
can't, what can I do to make sure that our IP is protected? And is there a law out there? Well, maybe we can't comply with every single, P's and Q's of the law, but we comply with the spirit of it. So what's the potential consequence if we
Yeah.
don't, right? And to
Yeah.
think through those types of issues, but it's really about understanding what's important to your business.
Yeah. And having worked across multiple industries, what common legal challenges have you encountered, and how have you adapted your approach to different sectors?
Yeah. So I think the one of the most common ones is that regulation is hard to change. And there is, when you're dealing with safety critical industry, there's a real appreciation for what the regulators are doing is designed not to make your life difficult, but to actually have safety measures in
Yeah.
place. The
Yeah.
FDA, Department of Transportation, which are HHS, those are some of the agencies I worked with throughout my career, and they're all focused on protecting consumers. That is their first and foremost goal, right? And so the challenge is always how do you help them further their goal of protecting consumers while advocating for the innovation. And I think that was particularly true when I was at Waymo, where we were advocating for something that had never been contemplated when all the safety regulations for cars and rules of the road were created. So how do you all of a sudden get your regulators' minds around that, and what can you give them to reassure them? Because if something wrong happens, it's not the company, it's the regulator, the first that is going to be on the front line of taking the brunt of that of those complaints.
So that's really interesting. Talk a little bit about your experience navigating and working with regulators. I mean, I think we typically view in a highly regulated space. I think there's a lot more that's been established that you're almost reacting to, but in a new space like automated or autonomous driving vehicles, you were really shaping how the regulatory landscape, how it looks. And so, can you talk a little bit about what your interactions were with regulators in that experience and others?
Sure. So I think really our experience, my experience with the regulators was literally sitting down with them
Yeah.
and walking them through what is it that our technology does, why does it work this way, and how does it literally accomplish this particular regulatory goal,
Uh-huh.
and talking to them about what were the measures we took in order to ensure safety, whether it was a self-driving or autonomous vehicle, whether it was an ingestible sensor, whether it's thinking about how we market and promote a new drug or a new technology. It
Yeah.
really needs to always come down to that and to reassuring them and having that particular conversation in person sometimes, and sometimes showing them the physical product as well.
Yeah. So a big topic in the regulated space and all all spaces, quite frankly, today is AI and digital health
Yes.
solutions transforming patient care, but raising ethical concerns and legal concerns
Hmm.
around bias, privacy, and accountability. How
Hmm.
do you think legal teams should approach these risks while also enabling innovation?
Um, so I think it is where we as lawyers can really help the technology be more universally accepted, right? Because as you mentioned, it is out there all the time, and we're all holding two conflicting thoughts, which is AI is amazing, and at the same time, it's scary.
Yeah.
And the way I work with my clients right now in that space is one, being on top of all the issues that are bubbling up all the time, whether it's privacy issues, whether it's regulation about the data sets you're using, whether
Yeah.
it's about, how do you ensure that there's no bias that's crept in? How do you ensure the accuracy of the results, right?
Yeah.
And being on top of that and understanding how our product is evolving as well, as they use more and more AI, and then also focusing on what can the AI enabled product in particular do to help streamline, whether it's a physician practice, whether it's clinical trial research, and really helping us focus on maybe efficiencies right now while we're all still trying to figure out AI, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of what's going on, is how much do you have the AI actually do with your
Yeah.
product, and
Yeah.
how safe do you feel as a consumer with it? Not just being a clinical decision-making tool, but actually treating you, actually diagnosing that there's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in the legal space, you see a lot of, co-counsels or co-pilots, or, the AI is really working alongside you as the professional. I mean, it's been interesting to watch the progression of AI, and it is a little scary to think about where it could be in 1, 2, 5, 10 years from now. I tell this story. I'm starting to be nice to my AI with chatbot, so because
And
it
I
just
and
yeah.
I have read that you get better results if you say please and thank you to your AI
It's
chatbot.
so
And
funny. I
I
mean,
don't know why, but I do the same thing. And I say, can you
yeah,
please make this
yeah.
better? Thank you for this great answer.
That's right. I mean, it is pretty incredible what it can do, and the more you learn about prompt engineering and that type of thing. I mean, there's really, I mean, we're only scratching the surface
Mhm.
of what this will be able to do down the road, and it will naturally take some time for all of us to catch up in terms of
Yeah.
like what we're comfortable trusting AI to do. So you've worked in highly regulated industries with AI and other tech. Uh, What's your experience been in the international space, and how have you kind of been able to navigate those changing waters with regulation and AI and elsewhere in your career?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of work in the international space as well. Two of my MedTech clients, both Proteus and Hyperfine, then even now, some of my clients, they have all launched internationally, whether it was in the EU, the UK, Australia, Canada, and then Waymo, of course, while we haven't launched internationally, that was always something that was on the horizon. And launching an autonomous vehicle is really challenging, and more so when you have a really large regulatory overlay anyways. So a lot of the issues though is not just AI development, but a lot of privacy
Yeah.
issues and
Yeah.
data sharing issues, and how much the government is involved in that type of thing, and protecting your own confidential information as a company, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
really big factor as well.
Yeah.
And then finally, like I said, safety is always a number one concern. So how does that factor into how you launch a product?
So during your time at Waymo, the legal framework for autonomous vehicles was still evolving. What was your
Mhm.
strategy for advising a company whose technology was ahead of existing laws?
Um, there's always been where I've been is in companies. I always seem to be ahead of the regulation, and I think it goes back to, first of all, I had an incredible team of folks who helped us think through those issues, but it was really triangulating between or among regulators, industry, policymakers, thinkers, thought
Yeah.
leaders as well, in helping, once again, the government see the benefit really of adopting our technology first. And I think you see that now, in particular with Waymo, which just announced that they were launching more commercially in Austin, for example.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's really exciting for these cities to be able to say, look at us, look how forward thinking we are. and then that attracts others, right? And so it, really focusing on the win-win between the regulators and the company as well.
So where do you see legal teams having the biggest impact in these industries over the next 5 years?
Um, I think it's going to be in a couple things. One is really focusing on um, understanding where the technology is the same and where is the same as what it's always been. I mean, the technology is ahead of the regulation, and focusing on that delta, right? And how do you analogize the intent of the regulation with what your new
Yeah,
innovative technology is doing?
yeah,
Really understanding the business and the business, like really understanding the product, the technology, and the business and what those needs are. Um, and being able to advocate and answer questions, because one of the things that I think general counsel in particular bring, or in-house counsel bring to their companies, is that we see all different parts of it, right? So I
yeah.
can see the technology part, the finance part, the business part, and the policy part, and bring it all together and be really effective advocates for the companies that we represent.
So as a leader, how do you cultivate high-performing legal teams and ensure they stay aligned with business goals?
um, I spend a lot of time sharing what I learn from my peers and the executives in the company with my teams, and helping them translate that to the work that they're
Yeah,
doing.
yeah,
So, for example, I was in a company once and we were looking at a financing, and we were getting, I don't know, 20, 30 NDAs every week because we were looking at potential partners, potential investors. And we could look at every single NDA, right? But I had to teach my team that these are the most important provisions
yeah,
that we're looking for, and everything else we can agree to because we need to get through these. It's much
yeah,
more important for us to get the financing.
yeah,
And we all know an
yeah,
NDA is
yeah,
worth the
yeah,
paper it's written on, anyways. So,
yeah, yeah. So legal teams are often seen as risk mitigators rather than business enablers. How do you position the legal function as a proactive, strategic partner rather than a reactive compliance gatekeeper?
um, I I try to create a lot of really good relationships with my business people. And
Yeah,
what that means
yeah,
is they come to know me as a human being, and they also come to know me as someone who is just as equally invested in their success. And um, and so one of the things I do is, when I join a company in particular, is I speak to my key stakeholders and I say, I'm not here to say no. This is going to be the only time you hear me say no. I want you to come to me when you have an idea, and come to me with what your best case scenario is. And I will so frequently say, that's fine.
yeah,
There's low legal risk, or there's some medium risk, but we can handle it. And this is how we're going to mitigate it. And sometimes when I do see a lot of legal risk that I think is problematic for the company, I will say, well, can we tweak this one part? Is that okay with you? Right? Like, what do you lose? And sometimes I will just very cleanly say, you know what? I understand that is a great idea. I understand what the business goal and need is.
yeah,
And there's a lot of legal risk here. Let's have the right people make the decision to take that risk, and then we'll move forward. And my job is to mitigate as much as I can. But
yeah,
sometimes taking the risk is the best thing to do for the company. And we
yeah,
have to understand that and really just live with it.
yeah. So tech and med tech companies move fast and push boundaries. How do you strike the right balance when advising executives, ensuring they understand legal risks without stifling innovation?
Um, I I think what I do is, once again, going back to having them know who I am and
Yeah,
appreciate the fact that I speak thoughtfully about the legal risk. So, at a point where if I'm saying, okay, this is high risk, they know that I truly am being thoughtful about it. I do spend time with the executives, telling them kind of some of the parameters first. This is how I think about our company. This is how we think about our our risk profile. This is our existential issues that we're always going to be dealing with, and have that underlying framework. And so then there is a sense of, okay, I know what's typically going to be outside the realm of possibility and what's going to be within it, what's going to be pushing the boundaries. And so there's a framework from which that they can work.
Yeah. And you've led multiple legal teams across industries. How do you foster diversity and inclusion within the legal profession?
Um, for me, I really look at um, who is coming into the team, right? And being thoughtful about that. And it's not only, how you might look on the outside, but what kind of a thinker are you as well? I don't want everybody who thinks and talks like me. I want some
Yeah.
folks who might be more thoughtful and then they speak, or are more extroverted and that type of thing. And then
Yeah.
also how I approach my outside counsel. I'm very clear with them on what my expectations are of who is on my representation team.
Hmm.
And in my IP counsel at Hyperfine, for example, I was very clear that, hey, I'd really like to, foster some inclusion or diversity on our team. And they were great and say, hey, we have this person. This person is underrepresented typically in the space. We're going to bring this person up by having them be on the client calls, no cost to you. This way they can learn how to interact with clients. And soon that person was often my main contact with the IP council. And I thought that was amazing. And I really
Yeah.
appreciated being able to make them grow too.
That's great. And so as we start wrapping up here, I mean, many young attorneys aspire to work in-house. It's a very different skill set from law firm work. What advice would you provide for a junior lawyer aspiring to be where you are today?
Um, the more concise you can be in your answers, the better.
Yeah.
Especially the higher up the chain you go. When I talk to my CEO, the answer is usually going to be yes or no. And that's it.
Yeah.
That was the number one
Yeah.
skill I had to learn going in-house, was that long emails don't get read, short
Yeah.
emails do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your experience and your perspective. It's been a real pleasure and look forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.